Can you tell me when Brian Christ has signed in? He's joining? Okay, that's probably him then, yep. All right. Good morning. The time is 9:01, and the April 23rd, 2024 meeting of the Zionsville Redevelopment Commission is called to order. We have a quorum, and we will start at the top of the agenda with consent items. We have the meeting minutes from our March meeting minutes from executive session on February 27th, the claims, and then the TIF error report. These are all consent items. Are there any questions, comments about these items? If not, can we take those by consent?
So moved.
So moved. Okay. I guess I should ask if there's any objections to taking those by consent, and then we can move forward. None. Okay. We're gonna take the next item out of order because we have some guests with us who have time commitments that they need to be able to make. So we're gonna move to new business, and we have Creekside lots 4 and 5, the purchase agreement. And we have Dr. Michael Beferuz with us and some colleagues. Sir, would you mind kind of describing the project and the vision for lots 4 and 5?
Hi, Michael Beferuz. Well pronounced, by the way. So I've been at 106th and Michigan Road. I'm an ophthalmologist. I've had a practice there since 2003. I started the practice from scratch, so did not purchase it from anybody. Started with patient 0. Over the last 20 years, I've built it up and now have about 10,000 square feet there at 106th and Michigan Road. I originally had several locations. I went up to Witham Hospital as well as serving Greenwood, but now I've kind of consolidated into one location. Well, with that location being right here at Carmel and Zionsville Juncture, I basically served pretty much Boone County, and I have a lot of patient following here in Boone County, and I need more space. And we have now three doctors, 1 ophthalmologist, myself, 2 optometrists. And the vision for the practice is to continue to grow. We're going to add probably 2 more optometrists and 1 other ophthalmologist. And so parking is our biggest issue. If anybody's been at the intersection of 106th and Commerce, which is the back road to Target there, it's a disaster. And so the parking is really tough for us, but it's also traffic flow. So we needed more space to expand our business and serve the community. So I've been around a long time in this community. I know a lot of people in Zionsville. So our vision is to build a 20,000 square foot building thereabout on those lots, and maybe actually utilize lot 3 as well, depending on our due diligence and what we think we need. We're going to have probably about 50 employees over the next 3 years total. And I anticipate that over that next 3 years, we'll bring probably 200 cars a day to that Creekside development. So it's going to be a high traffic. We see a lot of patients every day. So that's our vision, and our practice name is Center for Sight.
Right. Any question for Dr. Beferuz? All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So we have a development agreement before us for the sale of lots 4 and 5. Open up the floor to any discussion.
I apologize. I do have one question. What would the timing be on determining your need for Lot 3?
It kind of depends on.
Sorry, I should have asked earlier. Yeah, go ahead.
We're in the development phase right now, so we're getting drawings done through Cornerstone, and we're just trying to figure out parking. That's the biggest reason why we would need to bleed over there, because we need about 10 spots per 1,000 square feet of clinic space. So if it's a 20,000 square foot building, that's a lot of parking spots. So that we just need to figure out, especially in eye care, we need to figure out windows and which direction you want the windows to be, because we have to have dark rooms a lot of the space. So a lot of it's probably in the next, I would say 3 months, we're going to know.
Thank you.
Anything else while I'm up here?
Any further questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bless you. All right, what's the will of the commission on the development agreement?
If no one has any discussion, I'll move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is unanimous. Thank you for coming this morning. I know that you've got to get into surgery, but we're very excited about this project. Thank you. We'll move back up on the agenda to reports and go to Corey with the director's report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Corey Sharp. I just have a few updates for you. Every year, the Redevelopment Commission has the requirements to do state filing, council updates, town council updates, and of course, updates to you. One of the requirements is a digital report that is uploaded into DLGF, the Department of Local Government Finance. This is due April 15th, and what it is all of our TIF proceeds and expenditures associated with TIF are reported and available for public record through the DLGF website. So that was uploaded, and we met the deadline for that. Previous reports for the RDC have been cumbersome to find on the DLGF site. We have learned that that was because it was consolidated with the town. And so we are working with DLGF to separate the RDC TIF projects out from the town records. So again, if you're searching for TIF information, you can find that on the Indiana website. The second update is our South Village PUD update. The RDC is working feverishly with the planning department, DPW, fire and police, along with the mayor's department, to revise and edit the draft planned unit document that establishes the vision for 160 acres north and south of the creek on Zionsville Road. The plan encompasses several different previous plans, 4 or 5 off the top of my head, but really this consolidates all of the different planning documents and then casts a vision for a couple key development sites. The website is called ZionsvilleSouthVillage.com. The website has up on it current information. I committed to posting an updated draft of the PUD every Friday until we meet with the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission first presentation will be May 20th at their 6:30 p.m. meeting. We intend to introduce it at that meeting, give a detailed presentation, and go from there. The process after that is however long the Plan Commission takes to make a recommendation. They will make a recommendation that then will go to Town Council, and it will be enacted as an approved planned unit development that establishes the land use. The mayor is having South Village chats all across town, not just in the South Village. For instance, tonight I believe he'll be meeting in the Stonegate neighborhood. And these meetings are open to anyone that wants to attend. All of the future South Village chat meetings are also posted on the Zionsville southvillage.com website. We are, through the process, have been meeting with you, RDC members, and town council members through small RDC liaison group meetings, and we continue to get that feedback and reflect document changes in that document specifically. It is a living, breathing document, and when we post on Fridays, you will see a redlined version, and then come up this next Friday, those red lines will be accepted, and you'll see a new set of red lines. Some things that we are actively working on in the PUD document is updating the building height. Right now, the criteria is established around stories, 3 stories, 3.5 stories north of the creek, and 4 or 5 stories south of the creek. The conversation around stories is creating confusion, and so we are changing the criteria to be height based on feet. So we will establish what is the maximum height for a property north of the creek and maximum height south of the creek. The other changes that we are working on reflect land use and conversations with the Village Residents Association and other feedback that we've gotten from council and our other departments within the town. So we continue to work on that and unfold that document as it were, so to speak.
I have a question, Corey,
Yes,
while
sir.
we're on this topic. So there are, there's the South Village PUD, but then it's being proposed that Creekside, and then there's an established Cove PUD. So how do they interact within the South Village PUD?
There are 3 existing PUDs inside this 160-acre South Village PUD, the Cove, Creekside, and Dow. These existing PUDs will be obsolete, and the new code for all of these properties will be the South Village PUD. So any commitments that were made with the Cove or any of the other projects are being carried forward into this document. We're also updating any of the former codes that were difficult to administrate and updating it to be more fluid with and consistent with the traditional planning process that is out there today.
Okay, so from the process of enactment, does that mean then that essentially like the Creekside PUD, all of the detail within that just goes away?
Yes,
And
sir.
it will all fall under, okay.
Yep.
Got it. Any other questions on that one?
Is, just one, is every project that is within the PUD on hold and not going to be able to move forward until the PUD is either approved or not approved?
I would say that new development on the existing sites where developers own these or are under land contract to own these properties, they are on hold until a PUD is established. Their next step in doing their due diligence and density and performa are really shaped by what we are writing in the PUD document.
Thank you.
And if the town weren't leading this initiative, we would see independent PUDs come forward on site-specific projects, because the existing code does not allow for the types of mixed use and or density that this project is looking at. My final update is in regards to the READY grant. In case you didn't see, CERTA, which is the Central Indiana Regional Development Authority, our regional agent, so to speak, for the READY program, was awarded $45 million from IEDC to complete READY 2.0. This $45 million will be competitive for distribution amongst all of the communities that are a part of CERTA's membership. And that competitiveness ranges from Pittsboro, Anderson, McCordsville, Indianapolis, Carmel, Noblesville, Fishers, Zionsville. I believe there's several dozen towns and cities that are part of CERTA. So CERTA has issued a criteria for the distribution of this $45 million. We will be competing for a portion of this $45 million. That information is due this month. The mayor is leading this initiative, but because a lot of the projects that we submitted as our initial proposal are part of the South Village, the RDC is intimately involved in this READY grant application. Owen, Zach, and I are anyways. We intend to, at a minimum, submit for the construction dollars to construct the realignment of Main Street from Sycamore down to down to the bridge, basically. That includes 3 roundabouts as proposed and a new road, along with pathways on either side, and then a pathway connecting over to Lions Park. We understand that our dream budget is probably matches this $45 million for all of the projects that we want to achieve, but we also want to be competitive and respectful of all of the other communities. So our first priority is getting this road realigned. That is the other critical path for these developments to happen in the South Village, north of the creek. So that updated information is due May 20th to CERTA. Then we expect to hear a final award in July for our individual communities. So walking into the last half of the year, we should know our grant award for the road infrastructure and any other public infrastructure that we're working on in the South Village area. Are there any questions on READY?
I have a few questions about the READY grant. Does CERTA is their criteria based on something from the state, or have they established it themselves? And who is the governing, who is on that governing body? Are they appointed by mayors, state? Who is that?
The they do have a governing board, and they have officers of that board. The membership is made up of primarily mayors or town managers, depending on their local structure in each of the communities. My understanding is that the board, which is made up of the membership, will be voting and making a short list of the projects that will be awarded. So it will be our mayor, Stair, will be voting for other projects that were approved to be funded, So we have one seat at the table. Noblesville has one seat at the table, and so on and so forth. they then will vote and find consensus around how to spend the $45 million based on the criteria that Director Jennifer Messer has established. And I would imagine that their executive committee worked towards that too. I'm unfamiliar with that.
Was there this is Ready 2.0. What did we receive in the first?
Ready 1.0, the town of Zionsville received $1.9 million, and that $1.9 million is funding all consultant costs to do survey, engineering, and design of the road, the pathways on either side of the road, a boardwalk over to Lions Park on the north side of Sycamore. And then it will also fund the design of the public plaza as well.
So they've essentially funded phase 1, and
Yes.
with Ready 2.0, we're going to ask them to fund phase 2.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Thanks, Corey.
You're welcome.
We'll move next to old business. We have the project agreement for Wild Air, and I see that Mr. Moffett is here with us this morning. Want to be able to walk through some of the items included in here, Mr. Moffett. The commission has been able to review this document now, and there was some conversation about timing around issuance of bonds and the conveyance of the civic use land, as we've kind of been contemplating throughout this process, and wanted to have a discussion with you this morning about how you envision timing playing out subject to this agreement.
Absolutely. Good morning. Justin Moffett with Old Town Companies, for the record. I would say the entire development agreement process has been collaborative, based on the needs of the project and the expectations of the town. Early on, we could see, just based on the scale of the project, it's a substantial undertaking that we would need to build it out in phases. So leaving aside the civic use and the senior living that really, I think, is part of the discussion here this morning that you want to focus in on, the scale of just the residential components, and especially the for sale, the market wouldn't absorb those all at once. It's probably a 7 to 8 year build out. Based on the undersupply of housing, and nationally in central Indiana, we think that it will move pretty rapidly. But we expected a phased build out no matter what. So we had to kind of define where we were starting at the beginning, and for just more marketing reasons from the developer side, we try to create a center of gravity for development, a catalyst event where there's energy and activity, create a sense of place that people want to be around, and it will be modest, but we typically try to anchor developments with some sort of food and beverage component, and so you'll see projects coming forward embedded into our multifamily development area that include those. So that's really been our focus, is launch there, and then kind of in concentric circles out from the center of the development, we'll have the residential uses, and then work our way south. One of the drivers for us is utility infrastructure as well. So where are utilities coming from? What do we have to install first to make the development work? So all these things kind of fit into the mix of why we landed the development plan the way we did. So subsequently, we saw two distinct sources of revenue from allocation areas, both the multifamily development and the senior living. And then we tried to just kind of piece the puzzle together from there with how we would use those resources in a timely fashion. And so early in the project, we have the two roundabouts on Marysville. So those really serve as necessary infrastructure pieces to provide safe ingress, egress, and traffic flow on Marysville with all the traffic coming from the north. And so that became kind of project number one, if you will, where we're using the tax increment from the multifamily, building that necessary infrastructure early in the development. And it's kind of nearly a one-for-one, not exactly, but the increment that we drive from the multifamily really serves to help us build the major utility infrastructure in the Marysville Road reconstruction. And then we kind of looked at the civic use site and the other utility infrastructure that goes along with that, and the land as kind of the secondary project for us as we kind of work our way south. So for us, it's a budgetary issue of, we have to take down the land from the seller in phases. So that's something I would say we were pleased with when they first did an RFP, a broad RFP, and they got many bids for the site. They claimed that they wanted a legacy project, and usually when I hear that, I'm a little skeptical. Is it just really we want, the biggest number? They had several offers from national developers that was just a single check, single takedown. We buy the land, we'll close in 6 months, because it was zoned for pretty dense single family. And they rejected that for the harder deal that had a phased takedown over 7 years. So that kind of showed me their true interest in the whole legacy placemaking initiative here. So we phased the takedown with them as well, working our way south. And so one of our later phase takedowns would be kind of this senior and then the residential components down near Oak along with the civic use site. And so for us, that was a strategy of how do we pair that next bond issuance with that takedown. And so this has been discussion been going on, ongoing for the last almost a year with the town. I'm not saying we got it right, so glad to debate it with the Redevelopment Commission. But the strategy is simultaneous with a senior deal that we put together. We would take down that total land area, and then we would contribute the civic use site to the town, and then we would have the resources from the bond issuance to build all the infrastructure in that area. So that was the logic behind it. Right now, financing of any commercial project is really challenging. Multifamily, for those who are familiar with the space, it's especially challenging. We were hoping interest rates would start to tick down a little. Didn't have big hopes for massive drops before next year, but hoped for just a little glimmer of hope that we don't have yet. So because of the quality of this project and the uniqueness, we have financing lined up for the multifamily, so confident that we'll get that closed. But senior is a space right now that struggles even more than multifamily, and so we made a strategic decision, and we do actually have several partners we're vetting for that project right now, but we have agreement that the best decision to bring the highest quality project is to wait probably 2 years to bring that. So we have a meeting tomorrow with a group that we've been working with for a while to kind of continue the conversation on the partnership there. But what we are seeing across the board in the development space for groups that typically follow more of a merchant developer model is they're having to find aggressive ways to cut costs. And that value engineering exercise usually results in a lesser product than we would prefer to own and invest in, and I think you prefer not to have in your town. And so we're focused on bringing really high quality legacy development. The multifamily, we have not had to diminish the quality to get there. The return's not as good, I'll be honest with you. But I think that the market demand is strong, so we feel like it'll balance out. But the senior, we feel like we're sticking with the plan. We feel like within 2 years we will bring a project forward. And in conversations with the town, we don't know what the civic use project is yet. We've talked about the concept of community center as an idea. So we use that as a for example. Any project like that would require several years of vetting and pre-development exercises. I would, in my conversations with Corey and the mayor, we've discussed that it's likely that a project probably wouldn't launch for probably 4 years. That'd be ideal, that we know within 4 years, we'd know what the project is, we'd have pre-development done and ready to launch something. So we felt like we modeled this language around the timing that would be necessary for both of us.
I think our only, that all is logical and makes sense, but in the event that we were able to move quicker on the community center than you were on the phase 2, is there a way to accelerate that transfer so that it could be, completed as soon as possible, knowing that it might be unlikely, but just in the event that it would happen that way, could we accelerate it?
That is a question I'm glad to explore. Off the cuff, I don't have the answer of what the mechanism is. And so we'd have to bring, ideas back to you.
Okay.
So we're not opposed to it at all. And I think that the commitment that we were trying to show in the zoning concept for our planned development was that we labeled the civic use with fairly restrictive uses. Even though it's privately owned land, we really can't use it for, traditional commercial private uses without going through a new process for the town. So we kind of, in partnership, the spirit of a P3, painted ourselves into a corner so that the town would know that we're committed to seeing that sort of use. But the timing thing, looking at it today, I'd say I don't know how to do it yet because I have to materialize a pretty significant takedown of land. And so the Johnsons have been wonderful to work with so far and partners and collaborators in this. So I would think that they would partner on a strategy for this as well. But I don't have the answer today.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I mean, sorry.
I'm going to ask a question. I was just confirming. I was confirming that we don't have a timing issue with getting our financing for the Phase 1 bond. So I think probably the most appropriate strategy would be for us to come back in the next cycle, next month, and kind of bring you ideas. And so we get this one right.
Yeah, the additional context about your agreement with the Johnson family on the phasing of the project is helpful. But I do agree with my colleague that if it's possible for us to move more quick on this, then we'd like to explore that with you.
Yeah, and I think there would be a mutual benefit to that. I mean, I think having some sort of additional momentum there on that piece of land would create interest in the community. So,
okay,
wonderful. Any more questions about the agreement other than that topic?
If not, we'll add this back to old business for next month.
Wonderful.
All right,
Thanks
thanks,
for your
sir.
time today.
On to new business. We will start with the letter of interest that we received on lots 7 and 8 from exclusive land, which is Exclusive Auto Sports. That's in your packet. I'll go through just some of the high-level details. They've submitted an offer for lots 7 and 8 in Creekside. The purchase price that they have offered is $294,800. They will be plan to submit earnest money, and they would like to move quickly within 270 days. That is the gist of it. Approving this today would allow us to move forward with a development agreement with Exclusive Land LLC.
Is that an issue with the the right of first refusal on lot 3, given hotel partners?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. This morning is the first that I've heard any interest from Podell and the Dr. Befarus about interest in expanding onto Lot 3.
To answer your question, Commissioner Ashman, I don't believe that it is a conflict. Regardless of, what Lot 3 is, whether it's parking, sold to another party or regional stormwater management on that site, Exclusive Auto Sports expects to maintain everything on their site. They are willing to explore the idea of moving their stormwater across the street to Lot 3 if we do a regional system there. So that was
Exclusive is?
Exclusive is like if we end up doing a regional detention that supports multiple lots, then they would certainly entertain the design of taking that water north. The initial look at that site is the water drains south. And so we'd be flipping how that water moves. So it would likely be most feasible for them to keep their stormwater management on their individual site.
Do we have Brian? Is Brian available? Yeah, hey, Brian. To Commissioner Eshelman's question about number 11 and the LOI. So since we now have an agreement with Padel Partners and the occupant on lots 4 and 5, how does is there a conflict here? Yeah, the way that I kind of read this item is that they would potentially want 3, 4, and 5.
Yes.
And if the agreement with Padel breaks down and doesn't move forward before closing on lots 7 and 8, then they would like right of first refusal on those 3 lots.
I agree. That's how I read it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I remember you disclosed the conflict, but is it true to say that Exclusive has secured outside counsel from Ice Miller? Okay. All right, understood. Thank you.
But by voting to accept this letter of intent, you're not restricting, the commission isn't restricting itself to lot 3 in any way?
I don't. That's not how I read it. Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, is there a motion to accept the letter of interest?
For my clarification, accepting means not necessarily approving, but to negotiate? Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, the lots 7 and 8 would no longer be marketable by us, that we're moving forward with Exclusive on a development agreement. Is that correct? Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. We have already dealt with lots 4 and 5. So next on the agenda is Crow with 5-year projections. I see Becca is with us.
Good morning. I'm going to hook up my laptop.
Good morning, Commissioners. Becca Zakowski with Crow. I am going to kind of give a highlight and overview of our 5-year TIF report. This is an annual report we prepare each April and present to the Commission. We first did this last year, so this is our second update. But I know many of you have not probably seen this report yet, so I will go over some highlights and hit some of the kind of beefier sections and go into the numbers kind of in the back of the report in the exhibits. I'll skip some of these sections and go straight to an overview of your existing allocation areas. And I'll take this section with, actually make this bigger. I'll take this section kind of in junction with the next section, which really goes over the outstanding obligations of the Commission. A lot of these are tied and kind of go hand in hand with obligations that have been issued for specific projects. But first, your Zionsville EDA, you all know that this is the first kind of allocation area that was established by the Commission back in 2000. This is your kind of higher generating TIF area. It funds a lot of infrastructure and operating budget items. This area will expire in 2030, so something to keep in mind and keep an eye on as we think about the future. Your Oak Street allocation area will expire in 2014. It was established in 2014. It doesn't have an expiration date. And that's because there are no obligations payable from this TIF area yet. But it does fund a portion of your town hall note. It just doesn't have that direct pledge. Your 2015 334-700 allocation area, the Commission assumed a jurisdiction over this allocation area from Whitestown through annexation. This area will expire in 2047, and this is where the Adler Apartments project sits. Your Creekside allocation area was established in 2015 and will expire in 2040, and this was created through an amendment to your Zionsville EDA and has pays all of the, or has a pledge to the outstanding obligations that your Zionsville EDA has. The next few allocation areas were established with specific projects in mind. So the Metro FiberNet allocation area was established and captures personal property of Metro FiberNet. These, the TIF revenues in this area have a pledge to the 2017 Metro FiberNet bonds. And your 146th Street allocation area was created in 2017, will expire in 2046. This is where the Appaloosa Crossing project sits and pledges some of the TIF revenues to that bond issuance for that project. Your Holiday Farms allocation area was established in 2019. It does not have an expiration date just because it doesn't pay any obligations. The clock has not started. And obviously the Holiday Farms project is within that allocation area. Your Pittman Farm Phase 1 and Phase 2 areas were established in 2022. The Phase 1 allocation area will expire in 2048, and that is where the farm project sits and has a pledge to those bonds. The Phase 2 allocation area does not have an expiration date yet. There's no obligations outstanding in that area. Most recently, your Wild Air Area Number 1 and Wild Air Area Number 2. You all know that you recently established these areas, and there are bonds contemplated to fund the multifamily and senior living in these areas. We did include a note on this in this section about the proposed expanded Holiday Farms and Century allocation area. Those are contemplated to be approved this year, and also have a proposed bond issuance for a developer of the senior living. The next section goes over outstanding obligations. Like I said, a lot of these are tied to your specific project areas. Outside of that, the infrastructure bonds are really tied to your original Zionsville EDA, and that includes your sewage works bonds. Those mature in 2029, so just about 5 years. Those will be paid off. The 2012 Bennett Parkway bonds also mature. Those mature in 2025, so you just have about, I think, probably one payment left on those, and those will roll off. That's also funded through your Zionsville EDA TIF. Your 2016 lease rental bonds, those are funded through the Zionsville EDA and Creekside allocation area. Those mature in 2031. They have about $4.6 million left in principal on those. And then your town hall note, this note is paid by an annual appropriation. So some comes out of the town's food and beverage fund, but also a portion is funded out of the Oak Street allocation area. And that is about a $250,000 annual contribution to that payment from Oak Street. Your 2017 refunding bonds, these mature in 2028, so just a few years left. About $1.5 billion in principal on those remains outstanding, and those are paid by Zionsville EDA. The next several are project specific. So your Metro FiberNet, obviously those are paid by a 100% pledge of TIF revenues collected in the Metro FiberNet allocation area. The Appaloosa Crossing project bonds, those are paid from a 100% pledge of the project parcels in the 146th Street allocation area. And those were issued to support the Appaloosa Crossing project, the commercial project. And the Adler Apartments project bonds, these have a 90% pledge of TIF revenues generated in the 334-700 allocation area. And these were issued in support of the multifamily project in that.
Can I ask a question on that? And maybe,
Yeah.
Corey, this is for you. What project is that? Because I'm not aware of any project under construction out there. If the bonds were issued 18 months ago, presumably it would have already started construction, or am I just missing something?
No, you're not missing anything. The Adler bonds funded, the area includes the apartments and a Hy-Vee in front of the Adler Apartments. We have asked for.
Are the Adler Apartments built?
No.
Okay.
We asked the developer's attorney for an update on timing, and they expect the project to commence. It was 2025 was their completion date for their project.
Yeah, you can't start apartments now and be done in 25.
Yeah.
I assume Hy-Vee's not still involved?
Well, actually, I'm going to let Zach or Owen pick this up because they've been tracking it through the planning process, the zoning approvals.
Yeah, they had a regional detention so their detention, Adler's was supposed to be working in consort with Hy-V's, and I believe Hy-V is still going through iterations, so I think Hy-V is holding up Adler's development because of that shared detention. I think that was the last.
Who's the developer
For Adler, or
for the apartments, and who?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay.
Okay, I pulled up my email from Mr. Matt Price, who is the attorney. He said that he was able to reach Adler representative, and the project completion date he stated was spring of '27.
Okay. So were bonds actually issued and funds are sitting somewhere? And if so, where?
They were issued as draw bonds. I don't know I think there's probably a draw for the cost of issuance at closing, but you all would have probably approved any other draws, so I don't think there were any draws made for the
Okay.
project. Yeah. So there's no money sitting at a trustee or anything like that, because as they come and request draws, that will increase the par amount of the bond, and so nothing should be outstanding other than cost of issuance probably was drawn.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last bond or obligation that's outstanding today is your farm project bonds. And these have a 95% pledge of TIF revenues in the Phase 1 Pittman Farm allocation area. And then you obviously have your proposed Wild Air and Century bonds. We have not included those here because they haven't been issued yet. This next section just goes over the commission's bonding capacity. There are currently no outstanding bonds subject to your debt limitation. Bonds that are subject to your debt limitation have a special benefits, property tax pledge. All of your bonds that have that backup, the special benefits tax pledge, have been issued as lease financings, and those are not subject to the debt limitation, so that's why you don't see those here. Bonds that are payable from TIF revenues or other revenues of the commission also don't count against your debt limitation. So you currently have about $28 million in issuance margin that you're able to use against your special benefits tax. And that obviously increases as your net assessed value goes up, because that's just a calculation based on that. It's 2% of 1/3. So I think last year it was around $26 million. I'm going to skip over these next few sections and go to the numbers. Exhibit A is really just a calculation of your existing TIF revenues. There's about a 33% increase from 2023 to 2024. Most notably, we saw increases in Creekside, and that was due to the Ray Hall Letterman building coming online and being assessed. And then another large increase was, although a small amount total, 146th Street saw a large increase because of the Appaloosa Crossing shops being assessed. Otherwise, most of the other areas kind of maintained, maybe increased about 10% from last year. Overall, a 33% increase. And the next section just is your amortization schedules for your outstanding obligations, so just shows repayment of those bonds that are outstanding. Exhibit C is a coverage calculation looking at your Zionsville EDA and Creekside TIF revenues. These revenues are pledged to the 4 bonds that we show there, 2010, 2012, 2016, and 2017. You see that you have healthy coverage about 2.7 times. I think most notable here is that all of your bonds will roll off relatively soon within the next 6-ish years. But your Zionsville EDA TIF revenues also will expire kind of in line with that same timeline. And then Exhibit D is a 5-year kind of cash flow. We start with your beginning 2024 balance. We add in your existing TIF revenues, which we're expecting about $3.6 million this year. There's also, we add in the projects that we kind of know about that are tied to developer bonds. We roll those estimated TIF revenues in. And then we've also included some Creekside lot sales that Corey was able to provide. So estimated receipts of about 4.5 million. And then we subtract out your debt service and your lease rental payments, which come to about 1.8 million. And then operating expenses, which were pulled from your 2024 budget, and some of these were held constant through the 5-year period. We can work to update these operating expenses as we work through the year and understand kind of what is actually going to be spent out of the budget. But obviously these include things like South Village planning and your professional fees, which come out of the Zionsville EDA. So your ending cash balance is estimated to be about $4 million for 2024, and that's about a $334,000 increase from the beginning of the year if all of your operating expenses are spent how they've been budgeted. This section kind of down below under your estimated ending cash balance just looks at revenues minus expenses for that particular year. So you'll see that the Zionsville EDA is eating into fund balance a little bit, and that's just due to investments in South Village. And we'll continue to keep an eye on that, but you're putting the TIF revenues and the TIF dollars to work with just future projects in that fund. And then over the kind of 5-year period, we get down to about a $3.9 million fund balance. And this is for all of the TIFs combined. So still a healthy balance. And I think that's it. Corey, do you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Becca. Just a couple additional notes in our estimated costs represented in the Exhibit D1 that's up on the screen. We are showing an assignment agreement payment to the Zionsville Community Schools this year from a cash balance by way of memorializing the previous discussions over the last year of what is the agreement between the school and the RDC in Creekside, and do we want to continue operating underneath that existing agreement until it expires? And that assumption is what we've represented here. We have represented that we will continue to commit 50% of the Creekside TIF revenue to the schools through the duration of the agreement, in addition to making up this past payment, past due amounts through the sale of land this year to the schools by way of a cash investment.
There's nothing projected for 25, 26, 27, 28 on that, though.
This would be a makeup agreement.
This line item, so then where's the,
It's in the, if we look at the next kind of debt service,
Number 10.
number
number
10.
10, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's just 50% of estimated Creekside TIF revenues.
and that goes through 29, right?
So that amount, of course, will fluctuate as the AV continues to rise in Creekside.
Becca, on line 6 for Appaloosa Crossing, so I'm looking at what we projected or what was actuals for 2023, and it shows revenues, net revenues of 193,000, but we're not projecting anything for Appaloosa Crossing for TIF revenues until 2028.
That's because the existing property kind of line item above that has that already included in, there's some TIFs that is being generated today that's in that existing line item,
Okay.
which we can always break out in the future just so it's more clear.
It's okay. I wanted to make sure that since you did split it out below, that it does account for, it is accounted for somewhere else, because it does show it's zeroed out, but then earlier in the report, there is net revenues being generated.
Yes, the 146th Street allocation area is going to generate about $193,000 this year. So it's just within that existing property line.
That 117,000 in 2028, is that new revenues from other things coming online?
Yes, that's because it was a phased-in approach of the different commercial outlots. So that would assume, I think, probably a full build-out at that point.
Okay. Thank you. And I see that the 2012 bond rolls off this year. What is that? Remind me what bond that is.
That was for Bennett Parkway, extension of Bennett Parkway, water and sanitary sewer extensions, infrastructure work for Bennett Parkway.
Okay. And are those bonds serviceable from the Zionsville EDA?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you reflect that then in the 5-year outlook? Because that number, that 371,000, I assume then that in 2025 does that offset the estimated loss in the Zionsville EDA allocation area?
It doesn't, just because of the kind of investment that we're showing in South Village. It doesn't kind of even out.
Got it. So if that bond didn't roll off, the loss would be larger.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or the fund balance would be lower, yeah.
Right, I just want to clarify, it's not a loss. It's that we have a balance in the Zionsville EDA and that we are using that fund balance to invest in projects in the South Village. So we are spending the tax dollars for the public investments.
No, I understand that. I just,
Okay.
in the aggregate though, we're drawing that down, but we're
Yes.
expecting that at the end of the year, our expenditures will exceed revenues coming in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would say this is conservative. We don't build in any growth assumptions. So obviously, as new projects come online, AV goes up, all of our revenues would also increase.
Just as a closing statement, you're welcome to, of course, ask more questions, but at the beginning of the meeting, I presented information on our requirements to submit to the DLGF. That is a state requirement. This report is not a requirement by any other governing body town council state. This is an internal document that just helps us forecast our revenue over the next 5 years, along with anticipating future expenditures so that we can plan for projects and we can understand what our obligations are along with our potential debt capacity as we consider projects in the future. It's a learning tool for us.
Yeah, we talked about this in the finance committee and kind of thought that this, how they wanted to set it up for us was a kind of broad picture, kind of spelled out the different areas, so that, you know, if there were questions, you had this as a reference. And I just think it paints it's a broad picture, but a better one than we've had in past years here.
Any further discussion or questions? I agree with Kent. This is always very helpful. Last year's report was very helpful as well. Thank you. Moving on to next agenda item would be committee reports. Do we have a report, Commissioner Ezra, from the Finance Subcommittee?
Yeah, as Corey had said, Crow has put forward the DLGF requirements. We talked about that in the finance committees. We had a couple meetings, and we talked about the DLGF. We established claim review procedures, and the 5-year projection that you're looking at is basically what we've talked about this past month. So,
any questions?
one little more note, I'm sorry. The finance committee will be going over, hopefully, I believe it's 3 parking studies, hopefully. There are going to be proposals for 3 different companies, hopefully, for parking studies done for South Village. So that will be future information coming our way.
Okay. Thank you. From the governance committee, I have shared a draft of bylaws for the commission with the other members of the subcommittee, which is Commissioner Hage and Corey. And the intention is to have Mr. Oberlander review those once the committee has completed its review, and get those to the other commissioners so that we could potentially take action on that at the May meeting. Commissioner Pierce is not here. She did share with me that the Zionsville CDC met last week and that they have a grant request that they have approved and will be forwarding on to us. They so expect to see that on the May agenda for consideration. And then we do not have an architecture subcommittee report. Anything else, Corey?
Well, I just wanted to make a mental note for everyone that our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 28th, which is the day after Memorial Day. And I know that we're going to have a few absences, so I didn't know if the commissioners in attendance wanted to consider a rescheduling or proceed as usual, just an item up for discussion.
I'll be out of town the 28th, so.
I responded to your email about being available the day after, so the 29th, but I am going to be leaving out of town that afternoon and will be out the rest of that week. So if we don't do it, if we don't move it to that day or move it up, then I will be absent.
Do we have anything pressing that would prevent us from just waiting until June?
Well, I can ask Wild Air on their bond closing timeline, but that is not, to my recollection, that document is not tied to their bond documents. So I'll coordinate with them but that would be the only item. We do have a virtual meeting policy where we have to have a couple members present, but the rest of them could be virtual. But again, we can wait till June pending information from while there.
I'm available on the 28th, but if that's a problem, I think we're going to probably run into a lot of problems on scheduling where we're going to have at least one or two out. So if we didn't have to have it, I would just punt it to June. But
Yeah.
One more thing, that is also the date where Holiday Farms will be coming forward with their confirmatory resolution, TIF pledge, and development agreement as well. So that would push back their bonding capacity. I don't know if they're on track still for that, but that's also something to keep in mind.
I don't know about Timmy. Do you know if Commissioner Pierce is available on the 28th?
I don't know.
Okay.
But perhaps let's leave it as scheduled. Commissioner Ezra won't be in attendance, and if Commissioner Pierce isn't available, you'll still have 3 in quorum. And of course, Commissioner Ezra, you can attend online if that's available for you. I will also be online then that meeting as well.
Okay. All right. We'll just keep an eye on our inboxes, but let's move forward with that plan. All right.
Great.
Thank you. Any further business to come before the RDC? Seeing none, we are adjourned at 10:12 a.m.
thank you.